Today we're going to be graphing exponential functions. We're given an equation. We're going to use a little table to help create points so we can plot the function. We're given the equation f of x equals 10 times 1/2 to the x. If you remember from the last lesson, the number outside of the parentheses represents the a value or the starting value of the graph, also known as the y-intercept. The number inside the parentheses represents the multiplier. What we can do is substitute these given x values in for x in the equation, or we can just take the equation and use the information given to us. Since we know 10 is our starting value, we know that that is our y-intercept. When x is 0, that's the y-intercept of a graph. So 0, 10 is a point on our graph. We also know that 1/2 is the multiplier. So that means, given a y value, you multiply it by 1/2 to find the next y value. So 10 times 1/2 would give us 5. 5 times 1/2 is going to give us 2.5. 2.5 times 1/2 would give us 1.25. I can also work backwards this way, doing the opposite. So instead of multiplying 1/2, I can either divide by 1/2 or multiply by 2. So that means at -1, the y value would be 20. So we can go ahead and graph those coordinates that we were given. So -1, 20 is just slightly off my graph, but right there. 0, 10, 1, 5, 2, 2.5, 3, 1.25. And I'm going to go ahead and connect those points. This is an exponential decay graph because the values are decreasing from left to right, and the multiplier was less than 1. Now remember that in Algebra 1, the exponential functions have an asymptote at y equals 0, excuse me. So there is a line that this graph will not cross. So we do not want to trace our line crossing the x-axis. Now we're going to do the same with our second exponential function here. So we have f of x equals 2 times 2 to the x. 2 on the outside is our starting value, so that means our y-intercept would be 2. And our multiplier in this case is also 2. So if I multiply 2 times 2, I get 4. 4 times 2 gives me 8. 8 times 2 gives me 16. And when I work backwards, the opposite of multiplying by 2 would be dividing by 2. So 2 divided by 2 would give me 1. I have enough points where I can create the graph of this exponential function. -1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 4, 2, 8, and 3, 16. I can go ahead and draw that curve. This is an example of an exponential growth graph. And remember, there's an asymptote at y equals 0, so we do not want to cross the x-axis.